had a question last week about how to lose belly fat fast, and I'm going to go into how we get belly fat and how you can actually effectively keep it off long term. What I'm not going to suggest is that you try and get rid of it fast, because by getting rid of any fat fast, you're actually going to increase the stress response in your body, which is largely related to the belly fat gain in the first instance. So welcome to my channel. My name is Kate Hartley. I share a video with you every week around something related to menopause. So if you've not yet subscribed to the channel, make sure you do so that you don't miss out on future episodes. And if you find anything helpful in today's video, just drop it in the comments below. Also, let me know if you're struggling with belly fat. Is there something that you've tried that's really helped you get rid of it? I'd be really interested to hear what you found has worked best for you. So diving into it, belly fat really is a large indicator as to what's going on in your body as far as your insulin levels go, so your blood sugar, how you assimilate your blood sugar, and also your cortisol levels. Just very quickly, as we go through the menopause, all our sex hormones fall, but largely estrogen, as estrogen falls, our cortisol levels rise, one of our stress hormones. And when cortisol levels rise, that also necessarily means that our insulin, our fat storing hormone, rises, which is why, you know, all of a sudden you're thinking, where is all this fat coming around that's depositing itself around my belly? And a lot of people try and starve themselves. I even fell into that trap myself until I found that by eating the right kind of food and making sure I was eating enough protein and also strength training, among a few other things, it actually had a really big impact on my belly fat. But in summary, it just meant that I ate more and I worked out actually less, and that helped me get rid of the belly fat. But I'll go into it in more detail. So yeah, going back to the sort of the insulin and the cortisol, the reason we are more susceptible to cortisol rises as we go through perimenopause and beyond is the fact that as our estrogen levels fall, and the ovaries go into retirement, the adrenal glands are actually designed by nature to do the backup job of the ovaries. If we all had a lifestyle that was pretty balanced, so we weren't stressed, we weren't frazzled, we were eating food that didn't have things in it that were toxic to us, we ate the right kinds of foods, then we would not be putting the stress on our bodies like we are doing now. Even when you're eating healthily to some degree, and food marketing labels have got so much to be responsible for because they're marketing food as healthy and it's actually not. You know, like orange juice. So many people still drink a glass of orange juice in the morning because they think it's healthy for them. It's not. It's loaded with sugar. If you want orange juice, just eat an orange because it's not processed. It's got the fiber with it, which will slow down that blood sugar release. But a glass of orange juice or apple juice or pineapple juice or mango juice or whatever you might be drinking, that is not helping you at all with your fat loss, or your specifically belly fat loss in this point. So we really need to be mindful of managing our stress effectively. I even know people who said, well, I just started to meditate and I lost weight by doing nothing else, literally just adding meditation in. And it is absolutely true. If you can manage your stress more effectively, it won't just have a positive impact on your belly fat, it will have a positive impact on reducing and even eradicating the vast majority of your menopause related symptoms. Now, insulin, actually, before I move off cortisol is also catabolic. So it breaks down tissues. So I just want to address osteoporosis, because you're probably thinking, well, just because I manage my stress, that's not necessarily going to mean I'm going to have, you know, avoid brittle bone disease because my mother had it, my grandmother had it, blah, blah, blah. High fructose corn syrup is a massive one that is contributing to the vastly increasing rates of brittle bone disease. So it is about calcium. However, you don't want to be taking a calcium supplement unless you absolutely need to. And I'm not going to go into this in too much detail because I really wanted to stay on belly fat, but just as this caveat, because it's really important that you understand this. Just taking a calcium supplement is not necessarily going to help you. If you're taking calcium, your body needs to know what to do with it. It doesn't necessarily know where to put it, which is why I did an episode on vitamin D3 and K2 not long ago, because the K2 element of that supplement tells the body what to do with the calcium. So rather than depositing in your arteries, the other cells of your body where it shouldn't be, it's actually putting it into the bones where it needs to be. Just spinning back quickly to the high fructose corn syrup, things like salad dressings, which you think are healthy and they're not, Their mayonnaises. What's the other mayonnaise? Salad. Salad cream. A lot of shop bought soups, other healthy things, sodas. They have very high amounts of high fructose corn syrup. Essentially, that makes your body extract the calcium out of your bones, and you just pee it out. So even if you're taking calcium, even if you're eating lots of green leafy vegetables, you possibly eat dairy as well. I think the green leafy vegetables are even more important than the dairy, to be quite honest, as far as calcium goes. But even if you're doing all that, if you're still stocking up on the things that contain the high fructose corn syrup, you are doing yourself a massive disservice. So don't just think a calcium supplement is going to be a fix-all. It's not. It can actually be quite damaging if you don't need it for a start. And also if you haven't got that K2, because the K2, most of us are deficient in K2, down to the fact that our soil is poor. A lot of our, if you eat meat, a lot of the meat now is raised on grain and not grass. So it sort of goes back down. I will link that episode in the comments beneath, in the description box, just in case you want to explore that in more detail. I recommend you do. It's actually quite important that you understand the difference between just understanding how that calcium gets deposited properly. So that sort of covers that brittle bone disease thing. But essentially, as cortisol rises, it has that catabolic effect, which is why it's much harder to actually build lean muscle as well. The same thing is happening. It has that breaking down effect on our body. So again, it goes back to stress management, and stress is in all forms. It's not just running away from the dodgy person in the dark alley. It's the food that we're eating. It's what we're drinking. It's our thoughts. It's the pressure that we have on ourselves. It's the crazy stuff that goes out there in society that can cause significant stress. Even just like that niggle stress. You put the news on, it's just like, I cannot believe this has happened, or the tragedy that happened there. All of that has a really debilitating effect on all of us, unless you're psychopathic and you don't respond to those sorts of things. So everything, even the air you breathe, if you live in an area which is quite high in toxins, you get smogs, the heavy metals out there, the water that you drink, some of that might not be as pure as you think it is. Everything has an impact on how we manage our stress. So it really is down to us to manage the things that we can, because of course, you may not be able to afford one of those $5,000 water purifiers to stick in your home. So you might be stuck with the tap water, or you might be drinking the plastic bottled water that you bought from the shops that have got microplastics in it. We really are surrounded, without trying to sound too doom and gloom, we're being bombarded by so many things, even like our tea bags. They're full of microplastics. Our bodies are having to deal with so much this day and age. So we do really need to be mindful of the things that we can do to actually dampen down that stress response. And that includes, if you can grow your own food, brilliant, because you know exactly the quality of ground that you've grown it in. It's not got pesticides or chemicals on it, hopefully. You know you're eating healthy stuff. If you're not able to do that, I talk to so many people who say, oh, I can't afford to go and buy the fresh produce in the supermarket. Do you know the frozen produce is probably even more nutritionally beneficial for you, because it's not had the long transportation times. It's not been sat in the shop before it got on the shelf for you then to buy it, for you then to take it home and stick it in your fridge, for it to be sat in your fridge for days on end. So the frozen stuff, it's much better value. It's much quicker to cook with, so you're using less energy. And I honestly and truly think it's more nutritionally dense than the so-called fresh stuff, unless you grow your own. So there are ways of getting around it. Manage your alcohol as well. I know it's really tempting when life is crazy to have that soothing glass of whatever it might be at the end of the day. If it's just one glass, I really won't worry about it too much. If it's progressing to 2+, then try and knock that down a bit, because alcohol is a toxin to the body without a shadow of a doubt. And I know we've been drinking it for millennia, but we do abuse it more these days. And I think you just need to be mindful. You know whether you're drinking more than you actually want to. And if you are, then start to contemplate changing that, because we all go through this phase of change. You spend the time contemplating, and I will get onto the belly fat, I promise, but this is all an important aspect of it. We contemplate things before we actually take action to change them. So get into that contemplation phase and just consider it. If you're struggling or you don't really want to give up alcohol completely, what I would do is just tune into a few podcasts of people that talk about alcohol and just sort of take it on board gradually. And that will have a really positive impact on helping you stay strong when you decide, okay, this is the day I'm actually going to cut it out, or I'm going to cut it down. Because that does negatively impact your sleep as well, which is a really important part of belly fat loss too. So I think I've covered cortisol in a lot of depth, probably more so than you actually wanted, but there it is. Insulin is refined carbs, the sugars, the high fructose corn syrup. If we can manage our cortisol levels more effectively, that will have a positive impact on keeping our insulin levels down. But because we become more sedentary as we go through middle life, it means our metabolism starts to slow down. And because of that cortisol catabolic effect, breaking down bones and muscles, it is much harder for you to actually, or it is harder for you to build lean muscle. Lean muscle is going to help you stay younger for longer, without a shadow of a doubt. Muscle actually takes some of the glucose directly out of the bloodstream, which means your pancreas doesn't have to work so hard because it's not dealing with so much glucose or blood sugar because from the food and the drink that you've been eating. So muscle, as well as promoting human growth hormone, that's the elixir of youth, helping you feel and look stronger. A strong body does have a stronger mind. It helps you manage your stress levels more effectively because it gobbles up stress hormones. So again, strength training has a positive impact on cortisol. You might say, yeah, but I love running. Long distance running, if you're struggling with belly fat, it might not be your best thing to continue doing. You might hate me for saying that, but there are a lot of long distance runners out there who are very slender and they're super fit. Your endurance, your cardio ability is incredible, but you might be getting the belly fat because the long distance running is creating that overload of cortisol in your body. So if you love your running, I would still do it, but not as much. I would back off it a little bit and I would incorporate strength training. And if you're not doing anything yet, you want to start strength training as soon as you can. And I also include some high intensity interval training just for short bursts. So maybe 30, 45 seconds of intensive activity, and then you let your heart rate come back down again. That's why if you follow a program, I do all home workouts. I follow a calendar. I follow a complete program. I've just finished a 6-week one, which is all a sort of athletic yoga and primal flow movements. Absolutely loved it. All completely low impact. Our muscle tone is just off the charts from it. It's just been revolutionary on so many different levels. People are getting rid of belly fat because it's not increasing inflammation in the body. It's not causing that stress response in the body, but it is building up the lean muscle, firing up your metabolism. So when your metabolism is fired up, you're burning more calories even at rest. So understanding that relationship of cortisol and insulin on your body is really important, because then you'll understand, okay, well, this is not making my belly fat go away. So insulin is things like, so when we look at, like, you might hear of low GI foods, and essentially that means your glucose response to specific foods. Fats have the lowest glucose response. So fats will essentially not lift your insulin very much. Protein, it will trigger your insulin a little bit more. And then carbohydrates, which also includes fruits and vegetables, will trigger it the highest. But the absolute highest is the refined carbohydrates. And these are the things that are causing the majority of issues, because we need to eat fruits and vegetables. They are really, really important for us. And it's the white flour, the white pasta, the white rice, the cakes, the biscuits, the croissant. Those are all the things that are not doing you any favors. So as far as like the pasta, the rices go, make sure your portion is smaller, because we tend to eat way more than we need to. So your portion is significantly smaller of each of those food groups, but you go for the brown version rather than the white version. And things like cakes and biscuits, cereals to a degree, unless things like oats, yeah, cut them out. If belly fat's an issue for you, one of the fastest ways you will lose belly fat is to stop drinking alcohol and cut out the cakes, the biscuits, and the pastries. If you struggle with a sweet tooth, have something like Greek yogurt, 0 fat Greek yogurt, or in fact the one that contains 5% fat with some berries in it, or half a banana. I have a daily adaptogenic herb superfood shake, contains protein, but it's got loads and loads of good stuff in it. In fact, there's a link in the description if you want any more information on that. Because if you struggle with cravings, and belly fat is brilliant because it's got 8 adaptogen herbs in it, and the adaptogen herbs help us manage stress more effectively. So that's a really easy way of helping you bust through your belly fat, manage your stress more effectively, and also regulate your blood sugars. It's also full of other really, really good stuff. But you want to make sure that you're cutting out the things that are really going to contribute to that belly fat and the stress response in your body. So if you can find a healthier alternative to the cakes and the biscuits and the cookies, you'll be doing yourself one of the biggest favors, plus alcohol, because alcohol makes you hang on to more fluid, but it also does contribute to belly fat. I know when I go teetotal, my belly fat goes right the way down. When I start to drink alcohol again, I get a bit of fluff, definitely. And when I sleep badly, even if I'm not drinking alcohol, I get the fluff around my belly as well. Poor sleep has a majorly negative impact on your satiety hormone. So essentially you think you're hungrier when you're not, and you don't register that you're full as fast, and your brain just craves the sweeter things. So it's more difficult to manage the cravings on a day when you slept badly. If that happens to you, or when it happens to you, because if you're menopause, it's highly likely your sleep's been disrupted, load up on protein. I slept so badly not long ago, and I'd had a range of really bad nights. My belly fat this month is not great because of the bad sleep, largely down to my pet. One of them's been a bit poorly, so I've been up through the night with her, and it's just like, oh, I've been feeling so tired. And so what you need to do when you've slept badly is to load up on your protein first thing. And I did. I managed to get 40 to 50 grams of protein in my first meal of the day, and I really stayed protein centric throughout the day. So I just ate lots of fiber, vegetables, things like that, and protein. And I didn't actually get the cravings at all. It's quite remarkable. But I think it's just because I knew they would come, and so I just loaded up big time on the protein. Keeps you fuller for longer too. And also protein, it's really important as we go through the menopause, because we don't metabolize protein as well as we used to do. And because we've got that battle against the cortisol, which is nibbling away at our muscles, it's often that we need to eat more protein, particularly when you're strength training. Your goal is to build strong, lean muscles and reduce the fat. You want to be eating more protein. Just very quickly on the protein, ideally a gram of protein per pound of your ideal body weight. So if you're strength training, your goal is to build long, lean muscles and reduce your body fat. If your ideal weight is 140 pounds, you want to be aiming at about 140 grams of lean protein. If you do something like intermittent fasting and you may be eating just twice a day, try and maybe it's normally around sort of half of that, half to 3/4. So you're looking, if you wanted to weigh 140 pounds, you want to be looking at, oh God, my maths is horrendous, probably between 75 grams and 120 grams, 110 grams of protein a day if you follow intermittent fasting. Because if you after you've eaten too much protein in any one sitting, the rest will just be turned into fat. So, it really depends on how you eat, what your eat schedule is as to how much protein you should be eating. I will dive into that in more detail in a future episode, because I've been asked about that a few times. And it's, I think it's quite important, depending on what your goals are and the way you eat, as to how much protein you should be eating, and also easy ways to get more protein into your diet, as in your sort of daily food schedule. I will dive into that in much more detail, because it's actually really interesting. So a good indicator to know if you're within the healthy range for your belly fat, because again, a lot of us we all look at the bits that we don't like about ourselves, and you look at the bit and you just think, ugh, and you focus on that and you just think, oh, that's awful. But somebody else looking at you would think, bloody hell, I think you're in really good shape. And we just do it, don't we? I'm as guilty of it as anyone else. It's just like, ugh, those bits that I don't like. And the way to measure it, so you can really have a good guideline, is you either your waist to hip ratio and your waist to height ratio. So the waist to height ratio is your waist in inches divided by your height in inches. Okay, when I first did this, I was thinking, I'm 5'8", so that's what, 5 plus 8. Oh, I'm so thick. Obviously, 5 foot is 12 inches. Didn't actually factor that in. When I got the results, just like, jeepers creepers, I'm really, really overweight around my belly, even though I know I'm not. I knew I must have gone wrong somewhere, but it's just like my mind and maths is just rubbish. So do bear that in mind. Make sure you're 5'8" or whatever, 5 foot. You've got 12 inches per foot, okay? Just out of interest, so under a healthy weight, healthy height to weight ratio is anything under 0.5. 0.5 to 0.59 is indicating a higher risk to your health, and anything above that is you would definitely want to work on bringing that down. My waist to height ratio, just in case you're interested, is 0.42. So I was quite relieved to find that out after I'd recalculated it. Your waist to hip ratio is done in centimeters. You divide your waist by your hip measurement, and that will give you your answer. Just out of interest, mine is 0.73. Anything above, for women, 0.85 is significant visceral fat around your abdomen. You're looking at it. I think the World Health Authority actually regards that as visceral obesity, and anything above that is much higher risk of serious health problems. So just be mindful of that. It gives you, a good idea of whether you're in the healthy range or not. And if you're not, don't panic. There's so much that you can do about it. So how can we reduce our belly fat, the visceral fat, and also the adipose fat? The adipose fat, like I said, is underneath the skin. When you start to get healthier, your adipose fat subcutaneous fat is going to reduce all over your body. You can't really spot reduce. People say, but I do all these crunches to burn off my belly fat. It doesn't really work like that. But what it will do is increase the muscle tone in your abdomen, so that when you do lose the fat, you will start to see your abs. And it will also help support you. I mean, definitely, even if you've got a lot of weight to lose, start with those core exercises. Start strength training. But the core exercises are going to hold your posture up better. Your lungs will be have better space to breathe. Your digestive system will function better, because you're stronger around here. When you've got very weak core muscles, you get the back problems, you slouch, it has a negative impact on everything. And also physiologically, if you're feeling low, just stand up, put your shoulders back and smile. Make yourself smile. It actually works. It really does. You might think, I'm never doing that. If I feel grumpy, I just want to look grumpy. Okay, that's up to you. That's a choice. But I promise you, on days when you're just thinking like absolute shite, make yourself stand up straight and smile. Take a deep breath in, deep breath out. Maybe even have a big stretch. It energizes you. It changes the hormones in your body to feel happier and more alive. And that's a good starting point. So other ways to manage belly fat: cold water therapy. I really wish it wasn't, because I'm such a wimp with cold water, but it does. It turns white fat, which is metabolically inactive, into beige or brown fat. Brown fat is our healthiest kind of fat. Lots of babies have a much greater percentage of brown fat compared to us. Our sort of major deposits tend to be sort of the upper chest area. We don't have a huge amount of it, but brown fat is metabolically active. When you sleep well, you can also convert your white fat into brown fat. So another benefit of making sure you prioritize your Zs. But the cold water therapy has been shown to help with that conversion from the white fat, which really doesn't do an awful lot, to brown fat, which is designed to help to keep us warm. It burns energy, so it actually burns up calories. And I did some research on cold water therapy, purely because I was really hoping I'd find like a definitive article that said, no, it doesn't do you any good at all, but I couldn't find one, unless you've got heart problems. Yes, I think the best exposure is full body exposure in the cold, and the colder the better, and not to do it if you have heart issues, of course, and always, if you're starting it out, do it with somebody around, just in case you faint or you have, you just feel something happens. You definitely don't want to drown in a tub of very, very cold water. And make sure, if you're a wild swimmer, that your water's relatively clean. We actually have a waterfall at the back of our house up here in Scotland, and it's beautiful. And there is like a plunge pool, and I keep thinking I really ought to go and get in there. I just can't make myself do it. I need one of my sisters is nuts. She just like does it all the time. She swims in the sea. I actually have swam with her in Cornwall. We go swimming in the sea through winter, just in our swimming costumes and our wetsuit boots. and underwater torches because it's pitch black when we go, but you'll focus more on survival because of the big waves. And I somehow managed to do that. But I can't bring myself to do it here in Scotland. It's pathetic. One day maybe Wim Hof needs to come by and invite me out. Oh, anyhow, but cold water therapy, if you do that, it will help you. There is a certain amount of benefit. It's also very good for your mental health and just helping reduce inflammation in the body as a whole. Also, make sure that your gut health is good. While even if we're eating healthy food, you might say, oh, I grow all my own, it's all organic. If your gut health is not good, you're going to really struggle to absorb the nutrients effectively from the food that you eat. It's pretty simple to go and have a poop test to see what, the balance of bacteria that you have in your gut, just to make sure that you have the right balance. For instance, there's so much research on it. It's absolutely fascinating in actual fact. Even if you were delivered by C-section and you were not breastfed, your chances of having not such healthy gut, not everyone, but your chances of not having such a healthy gut are much higher because you didn't get the bacteria from the vaginal passage and you didn't get the colostrum from the first suckle from the mother's nipple. Not to say that's across the board, but it is an indicator. Also, if you've had a lot of or any antibiotics, those kill off the healthy bacteria in your gut. So particularly if you've had prolonged exposure to antibiotics, it can really negatively impact your gut health. And sometimes they're called a crapsule. You might just need a bit of a crapsule, which is basically, there are two ways of doing it, top down and bottom up. But it can repopulate your gut with the bacteria that it needs in order to extract that nutrition from the food that you eat. If you have leaky gut, I would go and ask your healthcare provider about the crapsule, and just, if they've not already given you a gut bacteria test, get them to do that for you, because leaky gut causes so many different problems. Inflammatory disease, rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia. There are all sorts of quite serious things can be impacted by a leaky gut. So just make sure, even if you're not on that end of the spectrum, make sure that, if you think your gut health might not be quite so good, go and get it tested so that because then, again, that will have a really positive impact on the nutrition that you can get from your food. It'll reduce the stress in your body, and it will also contribute to belly fat loss. So if you're doing everything that you think you should, and still you can't get rid of this belly fat, I would definitely look at your gut bacteria. So I hope that's been helpful to you. Drop it in the comments. Do you cold plunge? If you do you wild swim? Do you do it in like a river? Do you go into the sea? Do you have one of those tubs outside your house? Because I know so many people do it. I'll have to get into it one day. I'm a complete wimp with cold water. Thank you so much for your company. If you've got anything you'd like me to cover in a future episode, drop it in the comments. Also, you can send me a private message at Kate Hartley UK, and I look forward to chatting with you again soon.